Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining our webinar on the top 10 employee management mistakes and how to avoid them. My name is Amanda Haddaway and I'll be your trainer today. To give you a little bit of background, I've spent the last 17 years in human resources and I've witnessed firsthand all of the mistakes that we're going to be talking about today. Before we get started, I want to tell you just a little bit of information about my company, HR AnswerBox. I launched HR AnswerBox to help organizations solve their toughest employee management challenges. We work with small business owners and managers on creating compliant human resources functions, solving day-to-day employee problems, providing interactive training solutions, and really giving you peace of mind. If you have an HR question or concern, please contact me after today's webinar. I would love to work with your organization on an HR project or training initiative. So let's go ahead and get into today's topic. Our first employee management mistake is thinking that you can avoid or ignore employment laws because no one will know. Employment laws are confusing and it's sometimes hard to tell which ones apply to your business. However, ignorance is never a defense. Not only is it challenging to understand all of the laws that apply, there are regular changes to many of them at both the federal and state level. Some counties and municipalities are also enforcing laws on local businesses. So how do you navigate the confusing maze of compliance for your business? Most employment laws are based on the number of employees that you have, so start there. There are at least 25 federal laws that apply to companies with less than 50 employees. On top of those regulations, there are state laws that may apply, and there are certain laws that apply to specific industries. Consider conducting an internal HR audit to ensure that you are up to date with your employment law compliance. It's important to be in compliance because failure to comply and getting caught can result in some hefty and substantial fines. If you think that you're under the radar just because you're a smaller employer, please think again. Federal agencies like the Department of Labor have recently announced that they're ramping up enforcement efforts on businesses of all sizes, including small employers. Mistake number 2, not having an employee handbook or failing to regularly update the employee handbook. I actually have spoken with 2 different companies this week who both told me that they haven't updated their handbook in more than 10 years. You may not be sure what to put in an employee handbook, and you may be thinking, who reads this thing anyway, or why should I bother? Well, employee handbooks provide a framework for what is and isn't allowed in your workplace. It's a way to communicate applicable employment laws as well as information on policies and procedures specific to your organization. While writing and updating an employee handbook can take valuable time, the investment is worth it so that employees know exactly what is expected of them. The handbook is also a valuable tool if you have to discipline an employee or eventually terminate an employee. I recommend reviewing your handbook at least annually, but some companies prefer to do it every 6 months, and that's fine too. 10 years, however, is a little too long to wait. Our next employee management mistake is not having accurate job descriptions. You may be thinking that this is just another piece of paperwork that needs to be completed, but hear me out. It's true that job descriptions are used for recruiting, but they're also important tools when determining essential functions for ADA disability and reasonable accommodation claims, and also when dealing with performance issues. It's also a great way for a new employee to understand what is expected of him. If you don't currently have job descriptions, ask the incumbent, the person doing the job right now, to compile a list with her daily, weekly, and monthly tasks. From there, you can determine which tasks are essential and the required knowledge, skills, and abilities for the position. The good news is that you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. If you're hiring for a brand new position, check out online resources like ONET for sample job descriptions. Mistake number 4 is asking whatever you want in a job interview. The interviewers are one chance to figure out if a candidate will be a good fit for the position and our organization. You want to get to know the candidate on a personal level, but you need to be careful what you ask. There are limitations on what can and can't be asked during an interview. So the best advice I can give you is to ask only questions that pertain to the job. Your questions should help determine whether a candidate has the required knowledge, skills, and abilities for the position. It's equally important to assess whether the person will be a good fit for your organization. But there are some topics that you want to steer clear of in order to keep your interview from going into the discriminatory zone. Refrain from overtly personal questions and keep your inquiries on a job-related topic. If you're not the only interviewer in your organization, make sure that you train your interviewers. We sometimes assume that people know how to interview, but many interviewers report feeling unprepared and unknowledgeable about what is and isn't allowed in an interview. This is just one more way to protect your organization. Our next mistake is not doing background checks as a part of your pre-employment process. There is a cost associated with conducting a background check, and it does take a little bit of extra time in the recruiting process, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's totally worth it. Let me share this story with you. Several years ago, I was hiring a mechanic who would have welding responsibilities. He didn't indicate any criminal history on his application form or during the interview. However, during the background check process, we determined that he was a convicted arsonist. And if you're not familiar with welding, that's an open flame. So we decided that it wasn't in the best interest for the safety of our current employees to bring in this person and give him ready access to an open flame. Unfortunately, sometimes candidates lie or don't tell the whole truth, and you need to do your due diligence to protect your company, your existing employees, and your customers. Mistake number 6, failing to properly address and document performance problems. If you're thinking that you can ignore the performance problems and they'll just go away, or the person will eventually leave for another job, let me just tell you that that rarely happens. A head-in-the-sand approach won't fix poor performance, and in most cases, you risk having it impact other people on your team. This is another area where the job description is important. Take a look at that document and determine where the employee is falling short. Have a one-on-one discussion with the employee and provide steps to improve the performance. In some cases, the introduction of a written performance improvement plan with specific measurable goals and timelines may be helpful. At a minimum, send an email to the person as a recap of your conversation and expectations going forward. By being proactive, you'll protect the health and morale of your other well-performing employees if you effectively deal with performance problems as they arise. Not giving employees feedback. You may think that your employees know that they're doing a good job, but feedback shouldn't be a one-time per year event just during a performance review. Instead, you need to regularly monitor the performance and progress of all of your employees and provide them with regular comments on what they're doing well, as well as any areas for improvement. This is also a great time to discuss training opportunities, career path progression, and to get feedback from the employee about what's going well and where they may need your help. Even your top performing employees are looking for affirmation about their work. It doesn't take long to check in on your employees and see how they're doing, maybe only a couple minutes a day. You may be surprised at how little attention can result in big productivity gains. This one goes hand in hand with our last mistake. Number 8 is not rewarding and recognizing employees. Some of your employees probably do know that you appreciate them, but don't make the assumption that all of them are feeling valued. Little things like saying thank you and job well done can go a long way in encouraging employees to continue with their positive performance. Keep in mind, too, that rewards aren't always monetary or in the form of a bonus. Think about creative ways to incentivize your employees and find out what each of them likes and dislikes to make that reward even more valuable and personal. This small effort can help employees stay engaged and productive within your organization. This next mistake is a biggie. Having improper pay practices can have huge ramifications. The Fair Labor Standards Act, sometimes referred to as the FLSA, governs how we pay people, and it's the largest piece of wage and hour legislation out there. This law has very specific rules about who can and cannot be considered exempt and non-exempt based on their job duties. Employers who fail to classify their employees properly can have some very expensive consequences, so it's really important to get this right. You can't just make all of your employees salaried because it's easier to deal with from a payroll perspective and you don't want to be bothered with overtime. The law dictates who receives overtime pay and when. This is another area where the job description can be helpful in determining whether the position is exempt or non-exempt. Take a close look at the job duties as well as the requirements outlined in the FLSA. The complete law is available on the Department of Labor's website. And our final mistake is underestimating the importance of HR-related functions within your organization. If you're thinking that HR is a nice-to-have function, but since you're a small business, you don't have to worry about it, please think again. HR isn't just nice to have, it's essential to maintaining a legal and effective workplace. While you may not have a need for a full-time HR department, your organization is faced with workplace and employee issues on a daily basis. If you need help with some of the things that we covered in today's webinar, or you have other HR questions or concerns, please contact me. Our website, along with my email and office telephone number, is up on the screen. Also, I'd like to make you a special offer. If you visit our website soon, you can sign up for a free 30-minute solution session to discuss your top HR concern. During the call, we'll talk about the problem and discuss possible options and solutions. To sign up for your free call, visit hranswerbox.com. I'd like to thank you for tuning into today's webinar. I hope that you found this information helpful. Enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.